After King David's reign, his son Solomon ascended the throne of Israel, burdened with the task of leading a vast nation. He forged a key alliance with Egypt's pharaoh, taking his daughter as wife and bringing her to David's city. Solomon planned to build a grand house for his God, his own palace, and fortified walls around Jerusalem. But with no central temple yet built, the people still offered sacrifices at various high places throughout the land. Solomon himself loved God and followed his father David's ways, though he also sacrificed on high places. One night, he journeyed to Gibeon, the greatest of these sacred sites, and offered 1,000 burnt offerings. That very night, God appeared to Solomon in a dream, asking him to request whatever he desired. Solomon spoke of God's great kindness to his father David, but admitted he felt like a mere child, unfit to govern Israel. He asked for an understanding heart to judge God's immense people, to discern between good and evil. This request pleased God, who commended Solomon for not asking for long life, riches, or his enemies' lives. God promised him a wise and understanding heart, such that none before or after would ever equal him. He also granted Solomon unasked for riches and honor, making him unparalleled among kings if he walked in God's ways. Solomon awoke, realizing it was a dream. He returned to Jerusalem, offered burnt and peace offerings before the ark. Soon after, 2 women, prostitutes, came before the king, seeking justice for a terrible dispute. The first woman explained they lived alone. Both gave birth, but her child died because the other woman lay on it. She claimed the other woman then swapped her own dead child for the living one while she slept. The first woman discovered her child dead in the morning, then realized it was not the son she had born. The second woman vehemently denied it, claiming the living child was hers, leading to a heated argument. Solomon calmly summarized their conflicting stories, recognizing the impossibility of knowing the direct truth. Then, to the astonishment of the court, the king declared, "Bring me a sword," and a blade was presented. He commanded, "Divide the living child in 2, give half to one woman and half to the other." The true mother's heart yearned. She cried, "My lord, give her the living child, but in no way kill him." But the other woman coldly replied, "He shall be neither mine nor yours. Divide him." Solomon immediately announced, "Give the living child to the first woman. She is its true mother." All Israel heard of the king's judgment and deeply respected him, for they saw God's wisdom within him. King Solomon's reign extended over all Israel, supported by an elaborate structure of princes and officers. The people of Judah and Israel lived in great numbers, eating, drinking, and making merry under widespread peace. His dominion stretched from the Euphrates River to Egypt, with all kingdoms bringing him tribute. His court required immense daily provisions, including vast quantities of flour, cattle, sheep, and wild game. Solomon amassed an impressive military, with 40,000 stalls for chariots and 12,000 horsemen. God continued to bless Solomon with abundant wisdom, understanding, and breadth of mind, like sand on the seashore. His wisdom surpassed all others, and his fame spread throughout all the surrounding nations. He spoke 3,000 proverbs and composed 1,005 songs, displaying his profound understanding. Solomon spoke of all living things, from the mighty cedar of Lebanon to tiny hyssop, animals, birds, and fish. Kings from across the earth sent people to Jerusalem to hear and learn from Solomon's unmatched wisdom. Upon hearing Solomon had succeeded David, Hiram, king of Tyre, who had loved David, sent his servants. Solomon sent word that David could not build God's house due to wars, but now there was peace. Therefore, Solomon intended to build the house and requested Hiram send cedar trees from Lebanon. offering wages. Hiram rejoiced, praising God for giving David a wise son to rule such a great people. He agreed to supply all the cedar and cypress timber, sending them by sea as rafts for food for his household. Hiram supplied timber as desired, and Solomon annually gave Hiram 20,000 measures of wheat and oil. God gave Solomon wisdom as promised, and a strong treaty of peace was established between Hiram and Solomon. King Solomon levied a force of 30,000 men from Israel, sending them to Lebanon in shifts. He also employed 70,000 burden bearers and 80,000 stone cutters in the mountains. The king commanded his builders, along with Hiram's and the Gebalites, to cut large, costly stones for the foundation. In the 4th year of his reign, Solomon began to build the house for God. The house was built entirely of stones prepared at the quarry, so no hammer or iron tool was heard on site. He finished the main structure of the house, covering it with beams and planks of cedar. During construction, God spoke to Solomon, confirming his presence among Israel if they walked in his statutes. Solomon completed the physical house for God. He adorned the interior walls with cedar boards, carved with buds and flowers, and covered the floors with cypress. A 20-cubit section at the rear became the inner sanctuary, the most holy place, overlaid with pure gold. Chains of gold were drawn across the entrance, and the entire house, including the altar, was overlaid with gold. Inside the inner sanctuary, he placed 2 10-cubit tall cherubim of olive wood, overlaid with gold. The walls, inside and out, were carved with cherubim, palm trees, and open flowers, all covered in gold. He crafted golden doors of olive wood for the inner sanctuary, and cypress wood for the temple entrance, similarly carved. The foundation of God's house was laid in the 4th year and finished in the 11th, taking 7 years to build. Solomon then spent 13 years building his own grand house, completing all his royal residences. This included the elaborate house of the Forest of Lebanon, a massive structure with cedar pillars and beams. He also built the Porch of Judgment where his throne stood, covered entirely with cedar. A house of similar lavish construction was built for Pharaoh's daughter, his wife. All these royal structures were built with expensive, carefully cut and sawed stones from foundation to roof. To furnish these magnificent buildings, King Solomon sent for Hiram, a master bronze craftsman from Tyre. Hiram cast 2 colossal bronze pillars, 18 cubits high, with ornate capitals of chainwork and lilies for the temple porch. He also fashioned the great molten sea, a round bronze basin standing on 12 oxen, holding 2,000 baths. Hiram made 10 elaborate bronze bases, each with wheels and decorated panels of lions, oxen, and cherubim, topped with bronze basins. These bases with basins were placed, 5 on each side of the temple, and the molten sea was positioned to the right. Hiram completed all the bronze work for God's house, including pots, shovels, and many other vessels. The king had all these bronze vessels cast in the clay grounds between Succoth and Zarethan, near the Jordan plain. Within God's house, Solomon crafted all the altar, tables, lampstands, and all other vessels from pure gold. With all the construction finished, Solomon brought David's dedicated silver, gold, and vessels into the temple treasuries. Then, Solomon gathered all Israel's elders and leaders in Jerusalem to bring the Ark of God's covenant from David's city. The priests reverently carried the Ark of God, along with the tent of meeting and all its holy vessels. King Solomon and the entire congregation sacrificed countless sheep and cattle before the ark. The priests brought the ark into its final resting place within the inner sanctuary, beneath the cherubim's outstretched wings. As the priests exited the holy place, a dense cloud filled God's house, and his glory prevented them from ministering. Solomon declared that God had chosen to dwell in thick darkness, and he had built a permanent house for him. He then turned to bless all the assembly of Israel, who stood reverently before him. Solomon recounted God's promise to David. His son would build God's house, and now it was fulfilled. Standing before the altar, Solomon spread his hands toward heaven, praying to God, unique in heaven and earth. He implored God to keep promises to David, to listen to prayers offered toward this house, and to forgive. Solomon prayed for justice, forgiveness, rain and drought, relief from famine, and victory in battle. He even prayed for foreigners from distant lands, that they might hear God's name and fear him. After finishing this long prayer, Solomon rose from kneeling and blessed the entire assembly with a loud voice. He gave thanks for God's rest and fulfilled promises, urging the people to remain devoted to God's statutes. King Solomon and all Israel offered immense sacrifices, dedicating the newly built house to God. Solomon then held a magnificent 14-day feast for all Israel, sending them home joyful and glad. After finishing all his building projects, God appeared to Solomon a second time, as he had at Gibeon. God affirmed his hearing of Solomon's prayer, sanctifying the temple, but warned of consequences for disobedience. God declared he would tear the kingdom from Solomon's son, leaving one tribe, because of Solomon's actions. After 20 years of building, King Solomon gave Hiram of Tyre 20 cities in Galilee for his services. Hiram came to see the cities, but was displeased, calling them Kabul, meaning worthless. Despite this, Hiram later sent Solomon 120 talents of gold. Solomon continued vast building projects using forced labor, including fortifying cities, chariot cities, and pleasure palaces. He rebuilt Gezer, a city Pharaoh had burned and given as a wedding gift to Solomon's wife. Solomon established a fleet of ships at Ezion-Geber, which, with Hiram's sailors, brought back immense gold from Ophir. The Queen of Sheba, hearing of Solomon's fame and wisdom, traveled to Jerusalem to test him with hard questions. She was overwhelmed by Solomon's wisdom, his house, his table, servants, officials, and his grand procession to the temple. She declared that the reports of his wisdom and prosperity did not tell even half the truth. She gave the king 120 talents of gold, a vast quantity of spices, and precious stones. Hiram's fleet also brought rare almug trees, used by Solomon for pillars in God's house, and instruments. Solomon gave the Queen of Sheba all her desires and more, and she returned to her own land. Each year, Solomon received 666 talents of gold, plus tribute from traders and kings. He crafted 200 bucklers and 300 shields of beaten gold, and an immense ivory throne overlaid with gold. All his drinking vessels were of gold, as silver was considered of little value during his reign. His Tarshish fleet brought back exotic goods, and his merchants imported horses from Egypt, then resold them. King Solomon truly exceeded all other kings on earth in both riches and wisdom. Yet, King Solomon loved many foreign women, including Moabites, Ammonites, and Sidonians, despite God's warnings. These wives, 700 princesses, and 300 concubines, turned his heart away from God in his old age. He followed goddesses like Ashtoreth and gods like Milcom, doing what was evil in God's sight, unlike David. He even built high places for Chemosh and Molech on the mountain facing Jerusalem for his foreign wives to worship. God was angry with Solomon because his heart had turned away, despite God appearing to him twice with warnings. God declared he would tear the kingdom from Solomon's son, leaving one tribe for David's and Jerusalem's sake. God raised up an adversary to Solomon, Hadad the Edomite, a royal who had fled David's earlier conquest. Another adversary was Rezon, who gathered men, captured Damascus, and became an enemy to Israel all Solomon's days. Jeroboam, a valiant and industrious Ephraimite, whom Solomon had put in charge of Joseph's labor, also rebelled. The prophet Ahijah met Jeroboam, tore his new garment into 12 pieces, and told him to take 10. God would tear 10 tribes from Solomon's son for Jeroboam, leaving one for David's line. Solomon sought to kill Jeroboam, but he fled to Egypt, remaining there until the king's death. King Solomon reigned in Jerusalem for 40 years, a time of unprecedented glory, wealth, and profound wisdom. Solomon then passed away and was buried in David's city, leaving his son Rehoboam to reign in his place.